cryptozoology, I really love the idea of myths and storytelling revolving around mythical creatures and things like that. So that was kind of the initial thing that drew me into the project and why I applied and wanted to be a part of it. Of course, voice acting as well. Really love telling a story through just the telling of voice. So really that was what it was.
I was looking through a list of collaborations that we had at university, and there was probably about 30 or 40 maybe on this list, and there was only really one that I found appealing. They all had short synopsis, and Yowie was ticking every single box in terms of what I wanted to do aesthetically, and doing a podcast as well instead of a video was really appealing because I was studying sound at the time, so doing something that completely revolved around audio sounded like a really appealing project for me.
The medium, I guess. Yeah, I really wanted to work in just sound. Too often, I think everything in society is based on look and look like this, look like that. So it was really nice just to remove that part of it and just focus on how you sound, how it comes across. Yeah.
The challenge of creating a soundscape, a world, I guess, and I was given basically a blank canvas. I was given the dialogue and had to create a whole world around that. So I think that kind of idea and creative freedom to an extent was probably the most enticing part about the project.
Use your mind's eye a lot more and think about where you are positioned in space and time, and really focus on your relationship with the other person and try and put you listening to the other person on the other side of the room who's might not be sort of reacting to you directly, but trying to engage in that relationship and make that relationship real for just for voice is a lot different than doing for camera on stage.
I was involved in recording in my second year of a production diploma, and then I was involved in editing a couple of the episodes. I shared that workload with another student at the time, James Shaw. We had, I think, 3 recording days, and I was there on the third one. James had done the 2 previous, if I remember correctly. So for continuity's sake, when we cleaned up episodes, I'd do my recording sessions and he'd do his. And it ended up being probably 60-40 in his favour. So that way there was continuity, and then we just help each other out when we wouldn't have enough time for something. Not actually following the narration surprisingly made it more engaging because you were forgetting pieces of the storyline as they were happening, and you were listening to bits and going and be able to focus on the emotion of that particular scene as opposed to what was happening so you discover different nuances in the whole thing.
Well, I was lucky because for one of my scenes, I was with you, and so I could bounce off you for one of the scenes. And then the rest, I remember I did lots of actions. I remember holding my, Ranger 1.
I loved it. I had an absolute blast. So much fun getting to sort of playing around with a 16-year-old kid who probably I had a little bit in line with in terms of being a little bit angsty, teenagery, and I guess we're all like that at some stage, but not wanting to be part of, going against the flow and not listening to your parents and that sort of thing, and a little bit introverted. Maybe not such a tough teenager as well. Maybe got a little bit bullied at high school, which I know snuck in there as well.
I've never really worked on something and have had total control over it, especially not in the podcast domain. In fact, this is probably the second podcast that I've done, and it's the only podcast that has ever involved any sound design whatsoever. So I think that kind of idea, having to be able to almost place visuals in a person's mind through audio was definitely a new experience for me. Hopefully it came out all right.
I had a ball. We were in this little room in there at RMIT. The crew were fantastic. Everyone made you feel really comfortable. We laughed from start to finish. It was welcoming, I was excited. I'd never done anything like this before, so I was super keen to do it.
Well, it was great. I was entertained in the control room, listening to just the actors, even watching them standing in a circle with microphones reciting their lines was engaging enough for me. So having it all pieced together and into a fluid narrative with sound design and score, just so much better.
It's amazing. It's just the sound design particularly blew me away. Straight up, I really enjoyed just the mixing and the transitions, the sound effects that we used throughout it really, floored me, and it just made me want to keep listening from moment to moment.
I absolutely love it. I love it. I love the intensity. I love the build from different episodes. The soundscape, for want of a better explanation, has left me a bit jittery. So it'll be an interesting walk to the car. A higher standard than I could ever have imagined, and so absolutely stoked to be a part of it.
I mean, I love it. I love it. It's a quintessential Australian story that can be taken overseas, and I mean, you know, who doesn't love a monster story?
There's so many twists and turns in it that you don't want to give too much away. So I would probably just describe it as an Australian bush thriller mystery. Let's go with that.
There's not really much you can say without giving away. I'd say to people that there's a twist. I'd explain it as an Australian thriller with a twist.
I keep the mystery there. I just say you've got to really listen into Yowie, and I kind of ride on the Yowie factor because it is quintessentially Australian. So I just lean on that, and people try and quiz me, and I go, no, you've got to check it out. It's something you've really got to listen to. So
Number 1, Australian. Number 2, certainly a thriller, but not a thriller in the fact that it's gonna hold you. It gives those release moments, and it gives those moments where you kind of breathe and you can enjoy the surrounding world and the quiet parts, and there's comedic moments and all that kind of stuff. I think it's just a well-rounded, good story that almost any age would love.
Working with a great bunch of people who had and have a lot of passion for the project. Justin's just his passion and emotion for this project has just continued throughout this process, and it's just been so great to see him from the initial conception of this project through to where it is now. I'm just really stoked for it.
Everything went so smoothly. It was an enjoyable process for that reason. And I also enjoyed listening to it in the control room, as I said. So hearing it with each layer was like your favourite cake. Had added decorations and icing to it as more production elements got added to it.
Pleasantly surprised from start to finish. So I sent in my application. I loved that. It was exciting. It kind of went off into the void. Then I got a call back, which is unusual and appreciated. And it was odd. And Justin said to me, no, I've got you in mind. I could write you in. And I thought, yeah, what a load of phooey. And lo and behold, he called me back. And so I had to eat my words, and I was like, my God, all right, I'll audition for that one, and ended up getting the part. Loved the process, loved the commitment from start to finish. Hats off to you. To maintain the enthusiasm is just impressive in its own right, so I can't wait to bring on the 21st of August.
Definitely the creative freedom. I think the creative freedom and the idea that I was designing something that was Australian. I didn't have to play into any tropes of what you see on TV or what you might hear in music or anything like that. And even by saying create something Australian, it wasn't playing into Australian tropes either. It's just a true blue kind of Aussie story that allowed me to explore new sounds and explore sound design and create this world that people can be immersed in, I guess.
Performing as a 16-year-old with asthma was probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced. Pretending to have asthma and acting and doing it real and getting it realistic was certainly a tough thing to do.
It all worked surprisingly smoothly. Not that I had any lack of faith, but it sort of just went from strength to strength throughout the whole process and got bigger as well. It was a much smaller production as we started, and it sort of grew and everyone was able to keep up with it. All the actors gelled really together, and the community that they brought with them sort of made you feel like everyone had known each other for a long time. And so that if there were challenges, maybe that's what sort of shielded you from it.
This interview is probably what I'm finding most challenging. Yeah.
In the same idea, that creative freedom was very challenging, because there's a point where you can go too far and there's a point where you can go not far enough, and it's finding that middle balance where you have so many things going on, a voice over here, a gunshot over here, and the listener still has to be able to make sense of it within their mind.
No, I don't. There are some. One of the other things that, like, I had when you initially read about this concept, I'd read about this sort of spooky stretch of highway in New South Wales where apparently truckers they never like driving through it overnight, because they see stuff on the roads, and truckers have gone missing, and whole trucks have gone missing on the road. So that was kind of one of the things that attracted me to it as well. It kind of sparked my initial intrigue into it. But no, I'm not a Yowie believer.
I used to be obsessed with the Yowie and the Bunyip story when I was in primary school. They are real, but they're this big and they're on shelves in your local supermarket.
Absolutely, they're true. They're true. They're totally true.
I think they could have existed, maybe in a previous time, but today I'm more inclined to believe in Yetis than Yowies at the moment.
The fact that a lot of this story is a memory, somebody like a discussion like we're having now, and it's somebody reflecting back on something that's happened to them in his past, the fact that is represented in the medium of a podcast lends itself really well to that idea, because it feels like you are listening to him describe the events to you. So the lack of visual makes it more interesting as opposed to less engaging. I'm
just so keen to see it out in the world and see what I'm excited to see what people think of it. The reactions to it, because I think it's a really great project, and there needs to be more Australian podcasts being made. So just really keen for people to hear it.
People get watching it so that Justin can make another one, and so I can get a bigger role. Is that too rude? No.
I think the biggest thing is supporting these kind of creative Australian outlets, because once you start supporting them, more and more will pop up and the quality will continue to be out there.
Yeah, thanks Justin. He's been very enthusiastic for this, and he's been so incredibly helpful for everybody. I think they can say this as well. He's been very helpful for all of us, very enthusiastic about making us comfortable in our sessions, and make sure you watch it.
Listen.
Listen.